All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. It is Wednesday, March 27th. Let's see, where did these indices end up on the day? A lot of volatility, I would say, in the beginning of the day, and then it kind of simmered. Probably simmer is maybe a word that I'll use again, but I think that was kind of a good way, or a fizzle out towards the end of the day. I think we got to the VIX got to the highest around 11:30, got up above 16 and a half. Still finished higher on the day, up 3.2%, but a pretty decent move off those highs. So where did we finish up here? So we've got SPY down 0.5%. Q's down a little bit more, down 60 basis points, and IWM outperformed, even though still finished red on the day, down about 40 basis points. Your mid caps were your outperformer. That's MDY, Mary David Yellow, finished just fractionally down on the day, down about 10 basis points. Transports continue to rally. I think that's what, 2-day rally for transports, up 1%. Remember, that was a big concern maybe not a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, and they seem to be doing fine. Also, the banks outperformed a little bit today. Where did the regional banking ETF finished up 20 basis points? So I think yesterday I talked about how it kind of was an upside down rally, like a lot of those sectors that have been underperforming, or areas of the market that have been underperforming, fared better yesterday. Kind of the same thing today. It felt like a lot of technology was sold again. So, so what's the reason for this? Why are we seeing this pullback? I see a lot of traders kind of looking for reasoning. I think, why I've got this summary up is, Treasuries rally. I'm going to look at TLT, which finished up again very, very hot, up 90 basis points. Again, almost 1%. It's a big move for bonds. So there are some things. There's some Turkey lira stuff going on, which was a pretty crazy move. But Europe was fine today. Europe was not bad that day. China was up overnight. So this seems to be stuff that's going on here in the U.S., not so much globally. I thought that was really weird today. The fact that Europe was up while we were selling off, just something that you just don't see a lot of the time. But I think a couple things, and even the Euro stocks finished positive for the day, even though I think they were going down on what we were doing. The DAX finished flat. I mean, you would think that if I would just, rattling off those numbers for the U.S. indices, you would think that Europe would have been down like 1% today, but it wasn't. It was really like a head scratcher. So, I don't really have a lot of explanations other than what we talked about yesterday, which is a little bit of quarter end stuff. You do see some weird moves around quarter end. That again sometimes doesn't just happen on the final day of the quarter, but all of these moves are gamed. Just like quadruple witching. And the index rebalances, all this stuff is kind of, done a few days ahead of time for those who have to do it. Looks like Lyft IPO price just out. Price range 70 to 72 was 60 to 68. Wow. So that looks interesting. That'll be interesting. I think, is it tomorrow? I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or Friday that Lyft comes out. But what I was saying in the trading room today is, if you put in for shares with your broker as a private client or retail investor, and you got shares, that probably means that there wasn't good demand. It's just how it works, right? All the institutions put in, like, they oversubscribe for hot deals. Sometimes they put in like 10 times as many shares that they're actually going to get. And so normally how it works is if you don't get shares, sometimes it's a good thing, because then the stock goes up right after it IPOs, right? It's a hot deal. If you get shares, if you get like as many shares as you put in for, usually that's not a good sign. It just means that the institutions are not buyers of the deal. So just something to keep in mind if you, as we were saying, that some people in the trading room put in for them. So that's my take on that. On IPO shares. So we'll talk a little bit about so let me start with bonds, and then we'll Well, you know what? I'll start with a couple of names that reported. The application enterprise software group. This name always gets hit over the head when there's a little bit of volatility. Why does that happen? Because their valuations are super high. So this name that reported, this is another app software name, VRNT. Maybe this will give a little bit of a relief balance to that group. Again, they keep coming out, these, especially the smaller names, keep coming out and beating their earnings expectations and raising the bar. So, we'll start here just for a second. IGV did come off the lows, but I will tell you, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong this time, but every time this group comes in and has volatility, it's been a buying opportunity. Now, sometimes it's not a buying opportunity on day one or day two, but I would continue to kind of watch. I mean, I started a trade yesterday in Team, and I added to it today. I was able to take one target in my add from the lows, but things like Team, Twilio, right? These are really hot names. The valuation is super high, so yeah, they get hit pretty hard when the VIX, when the VIX is up 5 to 10%. These are good shorts because they get hit. What's the other one I'm thinking of? Coop, COUP. I think Coop wasn't that bad. Coop's right around that 50-day moving average. I've been looking at this name the last couple days. What's another? Oh, Keys is another one that I've been wanting to buy on a dip. No dip, no dip in this thing. Down 5 basis points. Well, sometimes. And then the other hot one is Zscaler. I didn't even see what this one did today. I mean, even not that bad. That 1.8 was actually an inside day for Zscaler. So anyway, that's that group. I wanted to cover that because VRNT reported after the close. So I might be a buyer of that group tomorrow. Lulu, really nice. I did a small trade in Lulu and in 5 today. Where's my earnings? Our everything, by the way, in our trading room, super, super organized. What I like to go over is, what the history. So Lulu was not, the options were not cheap. They were implying a 10% move. But one of the things to kind of give away, one of my secret sauce names for secret sauce formulas for playing earnings, it really depends a lot on how the name does in the past. So if you look on the right side, just this last quarter, Lulu fell 13%, but it looks like that was an outlier. The only thing I did a tiny little trade in Lulu. Oops, I don't even have it in here. Maybe it's in the trades. Oh, looks like I didn't put it in there, but I did sell a put spread. That's odd. I don't know why it didn't carry over. Yeah, I say it's really organized and I jinxed myself. But I did sell a put spread in Lulu today. I also did 5. So Lulu, really nice up to 160. There was a nice trade that hit the tape today that we were looking at. It was a 1x2 call spread that they did. They, where is this thing? 13, I think it's here, even though you've got this one in the middle, which is nothing. They bought the 150 calls. The April 150 calls for 645, and they sold twice as much of the 160 calls. And look at where it is, right at 160 on the nose. And notice, so they put this trade on for basically zero cost, or very close to zero cost, because they sold twice as many of the 160s. So if this trade stays at 160, man, they've got a $10 trade for basically zero cost for 1,500 times. Holy cow! What is that? A $1.5 million trade profit? Whew, that's hot. Ha! Yeah, just double checking my math. That's a 1.5. If it stays right here, and again, they have to wait till April expiration for that to be fully valued, but they should be able to lock in a decent amount of gains. Now, what institutions were probably doing is probably hedging that a little bit in the after hours. I would think if you got a $1.5 million gain like that, that's a pretty right on the nose. Then also a couple other names that reported. PVH. I did not play this one, but looks like Undies and Yogis. That's my little joke. Both doing pretty well. PVH is a name that I don't think has been that great on earnings. That's why I didn't play it. I stick to a very disciplined approach on earnings unless I really have a good feeling about something. But PVH, actually not that bad. It just had this one bad quarter. Another one that was flat. And then finally, this was kind of the move of the after hours. Five below. Sometimes these earnings names are just head scratchers. They missed. I don't know why. First of all, this 108, 107 print, somebody sold down to 107. Horrible, horrible. I don't know who would do such a thing. But I would think that the stock would have been down a little bit just going through the numbers, but I don't know. Maybe people taking the chance to get involved. The same store sales were not bad. I think they were an increase, but their fourth quarter guidance was weak. And usually the numbers react to that more than anything else. But yeah, here was comparable sales. That number was fine, but just the sales and full year sales is going to be less than expected as well. So I don't know, maybe they're doing a low ball, but kind of odd to have it up. But that's okay. I mean, I play this to the long side, and as long as it's above 119, I'll make money on it. So I'm quite pleased with that, considering the numbers that came out. Okay, so let's go over. We talked 10 minutes, just a little bit about some of the movers. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about the indices. If I can get this to change here on Thinkorswim. There we go. So, another one of these kick save type days where we did not close on the lows. We're right. I mean, there's basically no technical damage at all from today, which blows my mind because this morning looked pretty ugly. So right in here, what I did today was basically, once I saw that we were breaking, and I'll bring up IWM because that's basically what I traded. But again, hammer bar and IWM as well. I mean, it does look weak, but it's holding that bottom of value, which is right here. So, yes, looks weak, but we could rebound tomorrow, and this will all be kind of forgotten, the couple days of volatility that we've seen. But so what did I do today? I mean, I will really look when I see a breakdown like this. I mean, I was waiting. I had my finger on the trigger to buy puts, and I try to really take the emotion out of it, and just say, hey, if I use the value areas, the value area indicator. It really helps me a lot to stay unbiased and unemotional, objective with this market. But we could not. We failed here on the top of value. I had my finger on the trigger to buy puts, weekly puts here, and I was like, okay, well, we hung in there. And then just about like 15-20 minutes later, we broke, and that's where I bought puts. And I think I covered the put someplace in here. I didn't get the absolute low, which is interesting. It looks like we fell to the bottom of yesterday's value area, and then bounced. And I was surprised. I thought we would get the lunch bounce, but we basically had a V recovery there in IWM. Again, you can see it's a little bit weak after hours, and there was some put buying at the end of the day. But let's see what futures are doing here after the close. But yeah, we'll go. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, I mentioned Q's underperformed. I was talking about the FANG stocks and not getting too hung up on them yesterday. I mean, sure enough, they were the underperformers of the market. So. And the reason why I spend time on this, because I just see a lot of false things where people think that the FANG stocks are the leaders of the market, and some of these guys on Twitter, they really don't know what they're talking about, and I'm happy to always debate that with people, but I mean, it is what it is. The FANG stocks have not had the leadership all year long. So this is not what's driving the market. This is what's been the underperformers. Not quite as bad as the financials and the transports, which again have some strength the last couple of days. But just have to watch it with these names and not to get swallowed up by watching the same names over and over. But they looked pretty bad. Netflix was down 1.8%. Another thing that I hear is like, oh, well, they rotated money from Netflix into Amazon. I mean, that's also bullshit too. Do not listen to these guys on Twitter who say these things. They have no idea. They just, people say things confidently, and people think that they know what they're talking about. So anyway, I will move on. So what to watch for tomorrow? The option activity will go to CPCE. Just to see what the overall put call volume was today. It ticked up again today. Which means more puts were being bought. You could use that as a contrarian indicator, just like when we saw last Thursday, when we saw way too many calls being purchased, and we fell apart after that. Now we're seeing a lot more puts being bought. So I think that could be used as a contrarian indicator. Again, contrarian indicators don't always work, but might as well. I wanted to look at the VIX as well, and then we'll talk a little bit about bonds. Sorry, I'm jumping around from subject to subject today. The VIX. Let's see how this looks. I think this is continuing to make lower highs, right? I mean, since this big spike happened, obviously in December, we had an uptick here in January. We had another bout of volatility in the beginning of March. But, I mean, it looks like that these highs are coming in a little, this is close. If you're using the closing, I guess you can't, if you're using only the closing print, I guess you can't make that conclusion. But I think a good sign if you have more longs right now that the VIX is closing this way and closed lower than where we were on the open yesterday as well. The other thing that I like to look at is VVIX, the volatility of the VIX itself. This also not completely breaking down yet either, so may need one more day here. But if it doesn't happen, as we'll start the day tomorrow, we'll have support levels to watch. And if we start to break down, you better believe I'm going to be buying the weekly puts again, if that happens. Because again, we can't control what the market is going to do, but we can control how we're going to react to it. All right, so I mentioned TLT. I wanted to, so something, again, this still finished like very close to the highs of the day. I do think this virgin point of control has to be taken out. I was hoping for it to be taken out today, but just not yet. But I think this is starting to get pretty overbought. Again, good example of a virgin point of control was the last time one of these got hit on a big spurt in volatility, and that was on 1-2, and then a fade after that. So we are higher. We're basically back to around where we were about a year ago in the long bond. But if we could take this out, I think that we'll revert back a little bit. I really do. Let's just see what this looks like on the weekly chart as well. I mean, the only thing is the weekly, we've got a virgin point of control up here, but I think in the short run, short term, we'll probably take that one out on the daily chart and then maybe come in a little bit. All right, so that's today. Oh, I forgot to go over the option activity for the day. Really unusual. There was some decent calls that went up in the banks. This was in the first hour of the day. XLF, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Goldman a couple times today. So there was buyers in that. There was a lot of buyers in JD.com as well, which I'm long. I did take a very small trade, and whenever I take one of these bank trades, it really has to be something unusual that gets me involved. That big block of Morgan Stanley calls is something for me to get involved in. It did finish down 1.2%. If it breaks this point of control, sorry, not point of control, if it breaks the value error, I'll be out of those. But I did try a position in MS today because of that huge call buyer. So we'll see. I've traded Morgan. I do like the option activity in when we see Morgan Stanley calls. It usually works pretty well, but it doesn't mean it's going to work this time. Couple nice trades that we hit in the room was Boeing. Boeing is a swing trade I put on yesterday or 2 days ago. I talked about how this virgin point of control was taken out here. It's what I was waiting for. So was able to take a target today in Boeing on the highs. Also, the other trade that was able to take a nice target in was SVMK. Hit $17, which was my second target in SVMK. Really nice move in a weak tape. So very pleased with that. What else did I do today? The Lennar earnings trade worked. Sold out of a 50-52.5 call spread for $1.50, paid 98. Here was the IWM hedges. I went back into a little bit of Autodesk today, into the weakness. Here's my target in Boeing, and target in Team. And that's it. Well, so thanks for watching. If you are interested in getting involved in our private Twitter feed, we also have a new stock contest coming up in a couple days. We do a stock contest every month. Winner gets one free month off their subscription. But you can contact me at cfromhertz at Tribeca Trade Group, and I'll be happy to go over details about how you can get access to our private Twitter feed for our part-time membership. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.